It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
All right. Fantastic Wednesday morning. We're excited to have our special guest here today, Coach Jarrod Britt. We're excited to talk to him, head baseball coach, Cape Fear High School. And we'll talk a little about his journey and his road as a coach. I have to my left Coach D, as always, my co-host on the Prospect Podcast. Coach, we're really excited to talk to you today. You're head baseball coach at Cape Fear High School down in North Carolina, and we're excited to talk to you a little bit about your career path and the things that that you've been able to do, and talk a lot of baseball. Baseball is really constantly evolving, and which is amazing. It is amazing that is the case, because fundamentally you would argue fairly simple, straightforward game, but constantly evolving, type of players you have, the type of ways to do things, and where analytics and recruiting and, all the different things involved in it. So we're excited to have you on today. Welcome to the podcast. If you could really go into kind of your playing, coaching background and kind of how you arrived to where you are today.
Sure. Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's an opportunity for me to, get on and chat, talk some ball with some guys, and hopefully some people will get a chance to hear something that's going to make a change for them. I grew up in Southeast North Carolina. I'm from a baseball county, baseball town, USA, Whiteville, North Carolina. I played Legion ball there, and it's just a baseball hotspot. Tommy Green, Mackenzie Gore, those guys all came from those same areas. So baseball, you kind of live it and breathe it there. Was fortunate enough to play for some great coaches. Ricky Young at West Columbus High School. He's going to, be in the North Carolina Hall of Fame at some point. Brett Harwood at Whiteville. He's going to be in the North Carolina Hall of Fame at some point. And really just kind of sitting and listening to those guys and kind of just taking in knowledge from those guys during my prep years. Had an opportunity to play for about a year and a half at UNC Pembroke under Coach Paul O'Neill. Very tough dude to play for, but kind of introduced me to the college ball life. And introduced me to, how technical the game can be and how important small things are, and being fundamentally sound, how important that is. I always wanted to be a teacher. Teaching was just kind of in my blood. A lot of family members, teachers. Mom was a teacher. And so I just loved being around education. Never really dreamed of being a coach. It was just kind of, hey, I'm going to be a teacher. And then coaching became an opportunity to go with that. So, finished my playing career, had a lot of arm issues. I was a pitcher, had a lot of arm issues, and I just couldn't get past a lot of those things. And I think a lot of it probably stems from the fact that, 20 years ago, we had no idea how overthrowing could affect how bad your arm would be. And so there was no such thing as pitch counts. There was nobody cared. You just kind of threw. And, had a lot of tendonitis issues and just problems I couldn't get past. Anyways, met a girl from Fayetteville, North Carolina in college, and her dad introduced me to an athletic director at Pine Forest High School, and ended up getting my first teaching and coaching job there. Coached JV baseball and a varsity assistant coach for 10 years at Pine Forest High School. While I was there, also coached football for 3 years, coached girls basketball for a year, coached girls tennis for 4 years. So I've kind of run the gambit of a lot of different coaching opportunities. Baseball has always been my first love. So about 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago, the head baseball job came up at Cape Fear High School. Cape Fear is we're about to change classifications. So it's about 1,500 to 1,600 students east of Fayetteville. It's not really in Fayetteville, but we're still in the same school district as all those schools. And so when that job came open, that was an opportunity I felt for me to, if I wanted to be a head coach, man, I got to step out of my comfort zone, put my hat in the ring, and it just worked out perfectly. So I got the head job at Cape Fear and just been working ever since. Now, interestingly enough, my first year at Cape Fear, COVID hit in March. So I was kind of
there you
mouth
go.
on the fire hydrant, just sucking through, trying to figure out how to be a head coach, and then all of a sudden my season gets banged. So it was a learning opportunity from day one. Absolutely fantastic community that I coach in. We have such great support. It's a baseball community. They love baseball and softball east of Fayetteville. So it's been a great opportunity for me to be over there with some fantastic assistant coaches that have been around the game a long time. And I've enjoyed every second of it, just trying to build into a program that really had a great tradition whenever I got there. So it wasn't like I was building something. I was just trying to continue and then, advance the program any way I could. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm going into my 7th year. Next year will be my 7th year at Cape Fear, 17th year in education and prep coaching. So
it's really interesting to kind of hear everybody's journey. You're coaching a lot of different sports. I'm sure coaching all those different sports taught you a lot of different things in working with the current players that you have. Now, are you just coaching baseball now, or are you coaching anything else?
Just baseball. They asked me whenever I interviewed, would I be interested in doing anything? I said, baseball's kind of turned into a year-round thing almost. If you don't do workouts in the fall, you're kind of falling behind. So that was kind of my pitch was, if you want me to coach something else, I can, but I would really prefer just to coach baseball. So I've been fortunate enough just to be the head baseball coach.
Yeah, I'm sure players are playing, year round, most of your players at least, club and all that kind of stuff. And in order to stay on top of everything. And the South in baseball is huge, obviously, because the weather's great most of the year, which really, I think really lends itself. I mean, you could tell by as many teams in the SEC that made it to the College World Series, right? So the whole entire, all the super regionals. So I think it was 15 SEC teams, and between SEC and ACC, it was probably, I don't know if there's a team outside of that the South that was in the South or the West, I would say, that's in the College World Series. So it's really interesting the level of ball that goes on down there. Talk about from the time you took the head coaching job, some of the things that you really learned that maybe you weren't so familiar with when you were an assistant.
Sure. So I tell people all the time I loved being an assistant coach because I got to show up, throw BP, hit fungos, and go home. I had great relationships with players. I was their, not their friend, but, more along the lines of their buddy, their guy that they could come to and talk to about stuff. When you're a head coach, that goes out the window really quick. So one thing I picked up on really fast was there has to be an extra boundary, not a professional boundary, because there's always been a professional boundary, but there's an extra boundary of I have to make sure that guys know that I'm the dude that makes those tough decisions. I'm the guy that's putting the lineup together. I'm the guy that's, kind of determining their fate on the ball field. And it's not a power trip. It's more along the lines of I have to have some security here. So I don't get to be, touchy-feely with my players as much as my assistant coaches get to build those relationships, because at the end of the day, I have to have tough conversations. That was one thing that I picked up on really quickly. Another thing is just all the stuff that goes on outside of the actual baseball part of coaching.
All those logistics.
Oh man, it's a lot. And I kind of knew a little bit about it, but it's kind of one of those things like being a parent, you don't know it until you actually do it. And you don't know until you know. So the fundraising part of it, the purchasing part of it, the field maintenance part, the community relations kind of, who do I need to know? What boosters do I need to be, friendly with, and and not, again, it's not a taking advantage kind of thing. It's just, man, if you're going to run a program, you have to know certain things to be able to run that program successfully. You have to have a lot of help. One other thing that I picked up on that I had no idea was going to be a part of this was just the amount of outside time that I was going to spend doing like little nitpicky crap that I had no idea happened. And it sounds minuscule. Locking doors and gates, putting equipment away, and washing like laundry, organizing like, oh my gosh, that takes so much time. And I don't think most people realize it until,
because they're gone already. right? They're gone because you're the lock of the gate, right? It's those little things. And coach, it's so funny because like you said, like you don't know it until you're in it, right?
Yeah.
And even some of these, like, as that's why, look, say what it is, like I will, like, being an assistant is phenomenal because when those hard questions come up, right, especially football based or any sport, really, like, why am I not playing or what's going on, it's like, well, have the conversation over there, right? And I would say, like,
dude, man,
that's it, man. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. So yeah, there's a lot of things too. And especially I would assume, like, the fundraising, the booster, I think that's kind of spans across, all sports and whatnot, but the field maintenance, I think, when it comes to baseball, because there's just so much more, I think, going on with baseball, especially if you're like a natural surface. Do you guys have a natural surface or are you guys artificial?
Yes, and nobody in our county that artificial turf's not really a big deal down here for baseball, mainly because we just don't have the weather issues that a lot of other places have. We can pretty much play on it year round anyways. But the way that it works for us is because it's natural turf, we have to overseed with rye every year to be able to actually have green grass to play on because the Bermuda is going to be dormant until April. So we have a 619 Bermuda field. And it's gorgeous right now in the summer because everything's popping.
Absolutely.
In February, it's brown. And so we start our season. Our first game is the last week in February every year. And if we don't overseed, so I'm literally cutting grass all year long. Like I'm cutting grass over Christmas break because the ryegrass is growing over Christmas break.
But I love that. That's amazing.
That part of the maintenance is pretty intense. And also the dirt management, edge management that a lot of other coaches don't have to deal with. And I'm not crapping on football coaches by any means because their job includes a lot of stuff we don't do. I remember watching film for hours over the weekend when I coached football, and I just hated it. But as far as like the edging and the dirt maintenance and the stuff that goes into like making sure a mound and a play area are nicely packed and everything's nice how it's supposed to be, man, people just don't you don't know until you get out there on a Saturday afternoon when everybody else is enjoying their weekend and you're tamping a mound. Like you just don't know what it's like. So, and I'm not complaining. It's just something that people just don't realize until you actually do it.
Yeah, well, the difference between a good field and a bad field is always glaring. So it's when you're on a field that's well kept and the ball moves at the right pace when it's hit versus gets hit and it dies, or it gets hit and it hits. You talk about the edging, like all of a sudden it hits an edge and boom, it pops up. And
hey, look, we play on bad fields every year, and there's some programs that just don't take as good a care of the field as we do, and it's a noticeable difference. Our guys hate it because they don't know what kind of hops they're going to get. They have no idea. Like there's injury possibilities all the time. Like all those things come into play. But there's nothing better than you hosting a playoff game and a guy that comes to plays you've never played you before, and he walks up and he goes, "Whew, y'all's field looks good, coach." And you're like, "Yes."
Yeah, that's got to be a huge compliment. Yeah, that's what makes getting out there on Christmas break all worth it. Plus, I mean, look, for me, like the passion and obviously that to be a head coach and all those things that go with it. Like you want that aspect of it too, though, right? Like you're going out there and taking care of the grass. Like it's not a complaint. Right. It's a part of like I would be doing this anyway. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's just the level, I guess, like of intensity that you kind of want to go with it. Plus, I mean, for you guys, it's way different. You know what I mean? Like down there on the field, you got nice weather. For us, like we're dealing with, it is cold. Like when they start baseball, normally baseball season here, when it starts, you're the first couple weeks, you're inside in cages because you ain't getting out there. And then if you want to talk about maintenance, good luck because your field probably just got out from under, a couple inches of snow. Like that's kind of how it works, So it definitely plays a role. It's why guys go south so much for baseball. But I definitely think it's definitely a piece of the puzzle that you definitely have to deal with more so than coaches in other sports.
Yeah.
The talk about from a strategy standpoint. So when you became a head coach, and went from having a part of the strategy to really having the whole entire strategy. And I think what's most difficult about baseball is, the management of the pitching is so difficult, right? Because especially, if the schedule goes intact, you kind of have an idea of what it is. But if all of a sudden you get a rain out and then you're trying to manage the pitchers, and then obviously in high school, some of those guys are playing other positions, right? They're not just pitching most of the time. So you have to figure out which guy goes where, and talk about some of the things that really evolved from that standpoint, and some of the things that you figured out has really helped you guys, because you talked about that you really have. You walked into a really good program, but you've continued to elevate it. So talk about that stuff.
Yeah. So when I first got the job, the first thing I did was called 3 or 4 of the coaches around the county that I really respected, and just sat down with them and picked their brain about what are some of the things that you guys focus on in your program. What are some of the absolutes that you have? What are the focuses in practice? Because honestly, like, I'd written practice plans for other sports, but I'd never written a practice plan for a baseball practice, because I'd never been the dude running the baseball practice. I'd always been the guy that's in the support position. And so one thing that I really focused on was picking what are the things that I want us to be really good at. That plays into our tactics, because that determines basically how we run our game plan. As far as, do we want to be a really good 2-strike hitting team? Okay, well, here's what we're going to focus on in practice. Here are the ways that we're going to handle these situations in a game. This is going to determine how we kind of focus on how we're pushing runs across the plate. Are we one of those teams that's going to have to small ball people to death? Are we one of those teams that's going to really have to focus on, pounding the ball to the gaps? It changes year to year. Everything's like that's another thing with high school sports, is you don't ever have the same team. The chemistry is totally different year to year, even if you have some of the same players. When it comes to managing arms, I think in high school, there's an expectation that, you see big time programs that have just guys that they can run out that are POs that are not going to do anything else. All they're going to do is throw. We occasionally will have a guy that's a PO, but that's, like you said, most of our guys play other positions. So whenever we're making our lineups, this is not me making the lineup. This is a concerted effort between me and our coaching staff. I don't ever just do it by myself and unilaterally make decisions like that. But whenever we're making them, one thing we always look at is what are the switches for our pitching changes. So our starters on the mound, I always have in order in my mind how it's going to work. Now, it doesn't always work like this, but in order, who's our next guy up? Our next guy up is this guy. Okay, this is the switch that we have to go through in our lineup to make that happen. Do I have a DH for the game? If I have a DH in the game, is that going to allow me to be able to move that guy around? Who am I DHing for? Am I DHing for the catcher? Well, crap. Now I can't really, kill the DH, because now, that DH can't come into the game because they're not a catcher. So those, I don't think people in the stands actually, because I know my players don't understand this. I don't think people in the stands actually understand how substitutions work in high school baseball. And my players, they'll ask me questions sometimes like, am I hitting right here? And I'm like, you don't understand how lineups work? Like, you can't move in the lineup, bro. Once you're in the lineup, that's where you are.
Like, you're batting third, dude. Like, you're going to keep batting third the entire – like, no, dude, we don't shift now, and all of a sudden you're going to ninth.
So the other thing is, okay, well, I came off the field. Am I still hitting? No.
You're like, dude, you're out. Works, bro. You're out, dude.
So I know it sounds like I just assume sometimes that people know things, but at the end of the day, like when you're making those lineups, a lot of thought goes into the switches, and then a lot of like late game strategy, I guess is what you would call it, especially if you're in a tight game. You got to have a pinch runners, courtesy runners. You got to have all those guys ready. You got to make sure that you understand what puts your team in the best position. And honestly, there are times late in the season, like you mentioned, like rainouts, you get pushed to play in a 3-game week when you didn't think you were going to have a 3-game week. What kind of arms are you willing to throw out there? Now you got to start prioritizing which games are the most important games, because I can't throw a guy on the mound, for a game that's not as important as another game. And it's hard to justify that with your player, because you tell your players you want to win every game. Well, I mean, Are we coaching to win every game? Absolutely we are. Does that mean that we have our, top guys on the mound for every single game? It's impossible. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Coach, a question that comes up, how much does that now, it obviously I understand, like, in the when you're going into a game, how much does, and look, you referenced it before, like with football, obviously we sit down and we watch hours of film, right? It's everything that we do for the most part is based off of what are they doing? How are we going to combat that? How much within baseball and specifically your program does the opponent go into your strategizing a game? Or do you just play so many? It's kind of just like, hey, this is what we're doing.
I think it's a good mix of both. I think because in North Carolina, we get 24 games for a regular season, 24 games.
That was my next question.
Yeah, 24 games in about 11 weeks. One of those weeks is a spring break week.
Wow.
And then one of those weeks we used to, now we don't now. We used to have a conference tournament, so you couldn't schedule games that week.
That was cool.
Really got pushed. You really got pushed into scheduling pretty much 3-game weeks for your entire season to make sure that you could get your max games in. Next year is going to be a big change for us. We're switching classifications. They're redoing conferences, and they're completely changing our conference schedule. So, and they're also changing the way our playoffs are set up. So no more max schedules. Yeah, we're going straight off of RPI next year.
And do you basically play RPI, which is what is that? That's
winning percentage, opponent's winning percentage. Yeah, it's a nice little formula.
So who you play matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you get to you have an athletic director, I'm assuming, right? That do you guys schedule games together, or do you do the schedule yourself?
So my athletic director in our county, in our school district, he's an administrator. So he's a former coach, like he's coached before, but he's not going to get involved in my schedule. He'll just tell me like, hey, here are some suggestions about where I don't want you to go. Like I don't want you to travel too much because it costs us a lot of money to be able to travel. But as far as like scheduling, he leaves that completely up to me. So he's fantastic about allowing me to pick and choose what teams I feel are going to give us the best chance to, one, up our winning percentage, but also give us a good opportunity to play challenging teams that are going to prepare us for playoff scenarios, that are also going to have good winning percentages, that are going to help us boost our RPI in the best way possible.
Interesting. See, that's cool.
Development-wise, because you probably and TikTok and YouTube and all social media has really become like a hot fire with like all the, I would say that the conversations on travel ball and then the mocking of it too, right? Mocking of it. So it's both.
Yeah.
Right? As baseball is, you got Perfect Game and you got all these other plays, that's that do all these things with evaluation and all that stuff. From a development standpoint, what are some of the core things that you want your players to come in with, as they're transitioning from like middle school to up to you, and in order to be the player that you need at the high school level?
So first of all, travel ball is such an easy target, but travel ball is such a large, broad spectrum. High school coaches love to pick on travel ball, and a lot of them actually coach travel ball, but
of course they do. Of course they got it's what they do.
You don't get paid for the summer either, so you got to figure out a way to kind of
no doubt.
Yeah, and they're also not throwing the baseball coach a weight room stipend by any means either. You know what I'm saying?
Correct,
so that's a bit of a different thing. That usually goes to the football guys.
So it's an easy thing to pick on, but honestly, it's a broad spectrum because there are some really terrible travel organizations that are just money focused, that don't really care about development that much, as long as they can just as many teams they can put on the field. But there are some really fantastic travel organizations too that do a really good job providing facilities, providing very specific types of training to be able to help their players develop. And so I don't want to make it sound like travel ball is travel ball, because it's not. I mean, there's a lot of different teams and organizations out there that do a great job developing, but also some that just suck. And a lot of in between, a lot of just kind of here and there, kind of whatever, showing up and playing. As far as development is concerned, we have a pretty good middle school program. We have one feeder middle school that feeds into our high school. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing is it's right beside us. I get to go see them play. I get to know those guys before they come. The bad thing is there's not a lot of competition for middle school spots. So by the time they get to us, we have to field a JV team and a varsity team, and they're just fielding one team in the middle school. So I'm probably losing some guys that get cut from the middle school team because they usually have about 85. Yeah, that are not bad. They probably have about 85 to 90 guys go out for the middle school team every year. And it's a 22 or 23 man roster, where I have, 35 to 40 guys coming out for us every year, and I have to fill 2 rosters with that.
And no freshman team, Coach? You don't have a freshman team?
Yeah, we don't have enough guys to have a freshman team. So I don't know if Cape Fear's ever had a freshman team. There are some bigger high schools that traditionally did, but they don't even have them anymore. It's just
right.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is that like a North Carolina thing? Like not many guys have 3 levels?
Not much anymore. Some of the bigger schools around us, some of the schools around like Southern Pines and Richmond County, it's west of us. There's 2,000 plus students at those schools. They used to, and they don't even have them anymore. It's just that the baseball numbers have dropped so much.
Yeah. Well, Dave, we always talk about the South. It's hard. Like that baseball, right? Like with football kind of takes over when it comes to that stuff or those types of things. But go ahead, Coach. I didn't mean to digress. I was just trying.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Well, the development part of it, as far as our middle school is concerned, we want our guys, and it sounds so like cliche. We wanted to focus on throwing and catching, and that's honestly that doesn't get focused on enough now. There's so much of a focus on, okay, how far can I drive the ball? There's so much of a focus on, speed. And look, all these things are important. But if you can't throw and catch, man, you really cannot play at this level. And it sounds so basic, but that's because it is so basic. And we play against teams every year that have trouble just doing very, very fundamental things. Throwing the ball, catching the ball, fielding just a routine ground ball. So what I like to do every year is whenever the freshman class comes in, we start our workouts in September, and we don't have any limits on our workouts in the fall. So I can do as many guys as I want, and I get 2 hours a day, which is pretty much a practice. Yeah.
Wow.
No limits. I just can't do anything on Sundays, but I can do anything any other day I want. We just have
God's day.
one dead period in November, but outside of that, I'm pretty much open. So I will bring in the freshmen, and I will literally have those rising freshmen by themselves. And we will go in through our infield drills. We'll go through our outfield drills. If I have any catchers, we'll go through their stuff. I want to see them throw bullpens. I really want to focus on that young group so they can see kind of what we do. And I'll do a week or 2 of that. And then I'll put them together with our older guys, and we literally start from the ground up. And we start with our short hop infield drills, and we go through our pro step outfield drills, and we really hammer home some fundamental stuff. And I tell them very early on, this seems monotonous. It is. That's the whole point of baseball, is if you don't learn how to love this part of the process, you're going to absolutely suck when the game starts. Because the middle school guys, the game speeds up in JV baseball. And from JV to varsity, the jump in game speed is unbelievable. And so it really hits some guys. Some of it takes a little bit longer to sink in, but once they see, just being able to do basic stuff in a game is super important. Being able to get a bunt down, being able to effectively pick off a guy or, whatever it is, but just small fundamental stuff is really, really what we focus on. And I want to see our coaches at our middle school level and travel organizations around us that I have communications with, they all do that stuff too. So we all kind of are in that same boat, making sure that fundamentals are the key to start off with. Good footwork, throwing and catching, hand-eye coordination, stuff like that, and then we can build on it from there.
Do you think that it's interesting because you said that the middle school has so many kids come out for the team and they cut down the number. Would you rather them field 2 teams type of thing?
I'd love it if they did that.
You don't know at that age who's going to end up being you might have a kid 2 years later it becomes a giant and can do things, and now he's off playing some other sport, right? So, what do you think would be a better solution to be able to get a little more depth from that standpoint? Because I would imagine that as you're filtering towards varsity, you want to have a bigger pool to choose from to figure out who could fit, right?
I'd love to have 2 teams. I mean, I don't think it would be necessarily possible just with the competition that they play.
Right.
And then there's our area that we live in is growing like crazy. The access to Fort Bragg, which is where a majority of these folks are working from or either feeding out from. The access has gotten much better. So we do have a lot of people moving into the area. There may be a new middle school here in the next 5 to 10 years. We're not sure yet.
Wow.
But I would love to see 2 teams, man. Other than having 2 teams, what we found is that our rec leagues are okay up until about 10 years old. After 10, it gets kind of dicey as far as the competition is concerned. It's just not great. And so what I found is I would just rather go out and have conversations with these guys that are running this small, local travel organizations and saying, hey, what are you guys doing as far as practice is concerned? Do you need cages to hit in? You guys can have access to our stuff. I will come. I can't coach these guys, but I can come out and watch. We can have conversations about what you guys are doing. One of the guys that volunteers with us actually runs a travel organization, and he did it just because he was like, I don't know, we'll have a couple teams. We'll go play in, a tournament a month, whatever we can do.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of helps those guys because they practice more than they play. And I think that's what he's trying to drill in, which is what we're trying to drill in, is the practice is so much more important than the games. If we can get guys to where, again, they love that process, I think we're moving in the right direction. But as far as the keeping the numbers where they are, I think there's too much of an emphasis on single sport, specialization. We have a few guys that play football and that play baseball, and those end up being the dogs on the field. Like that, people don't realize how much that plays into the competitive level. But we have a couple of guys that swim or play soccer or things like that. They're like secondary sports down here that do play baseball as well. Maybe a wrestler that plays baseball. But all in all, like, it's gotten to the point where it's just people feel like they have to specialize. And we just tell them all the time, like, you don't have to do that. I don't care if you specialize or not. Do you want to go play football? Please go play football. Do something else, because I don't want you playing baseball year round in the first place. And then football is going to teach you just such a different competitive mindset that you need to learn to be able to make it at a higher level in baseball. I don't know if there's a great solution to fixing that number problem, but I think just getting guys active and making sure that they stay, loving the process of the game, I think that would probably be a first step in the right direction.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That's always a difficult thing, especially with baseball, the way that so many parents I think so many parents whose kids are okay athletes figure, if I just put him all the time in the baseball, then he's going to have a shot. And, eventually, if there's a kid that's a good athlete, eventually he's going to mature and he's going to start to be able to do some of those skills, even if he's behind when they're younger, 11, 12 or whatever. So I think that's one of the errors. And I think one of the other things in baseball that I think you touched on it, which is really important in the game, like how many at-bats are you getting? How many balls are getting hit your way, right? But in practice, you could get 50, 100 balls, you could get, 25, 30 plus at bats. You could go back with your dad or your travel coach and take more swings in the cage. You know what I mean? And you're going to get a lot more than you are in the actual game. Obviously, the one thing you get in the game is game speed, the pitching speed, all those kind of things. But you can really get a lot of work, and you could do, I think, mini games too within your own practices to simulate situations that can get you where you need to be. I think sometimes in baseball they get so crazy with like playing 9,000 games in a weekend or something, and the kids they're toasted by the end of the weekend. They're like, I thought we were going on vacation too, and
yeah. Well, I hate the fact that playing the games doesn't allow you to develop anything. What it does is, like you said, it helps you with game speed stuff. It may help a little bit with the baseball IQ part of it, but honestly, like, I can't teach during a game. I can't stop everything and fix a problem. I can't show you the correct way to do something in the middle of the game. But when we're in practice and we're working on a specific skill, and I've got a 15-minute period where I am, we're working on short hops and tunneling for infielders. Okay, this is how we work through the ball. This is how we tunnel the ball. And then you don't do it right. Okay, well, let's start this over again. Now I have time to teach this. Whereas in a game, if I see a guy, 10,000 different situations can happen in a baseball game. So I see something happen and I teach him like, oh, well, in this situation, this is what you do. Okay, well, that may never happen again in that kid's life. I have no idea how often that'll happen again. How often is he going to field a ball exactly that same way? But if we can do, simulated your 50 to 100 short hops in practice, now we've got 50 to 100 different hops that ball is going to take, different ways that ball is going to play, and he can work through all of them and then apply it to what he's seen in the game. And I just think a lot of guys don't see the value in practice because practice isn't flashy. It's not sexy. It's not something that a bunch of people are showing up to do. Nobody cares how much freaking equipment you have on. Nobody cares how you dress in practice. All they care about is the effort that you put in, the attitude that you're using with that effort. And it's hard work. It's supposed to be tough. Practices are supposed to be tough. And man, we've washed out players in our program before that just can't hack it in practice because they just don't care enough. And once the lights come on in the game, it shows up in a big way. And so they learn the hard way, but they learn.
No, that's a great point. Because I think the correction part is almost impossible in the games, other than maybe some situations. But when a guy's up batting and there's a flaw that you see right away, let's say he's striking out, like you don't want to get in his head, right? So you're trying to just help him to make contact, but you're not really overcorrecting anything, because the last thing you want is a batter getting up there and all in his head about all these different things. The practice is where you can go and really work all those things right off the tee, drop the ball, short pitch it to him. I mean, a million different things you can do to start to fix some of those situations. And then those extreme amount of reps translate down the line to the game and fixing, especially if someone gets in a slump, right? Like that's the worst thing. When they get in a slump, especially a good player, they don't know why they're in a slump. They've been dominating their whole life. And all of a sudden they're missing the ball, and you can't really fix it if you're just playing game after game after game. You got to get back in there, go back to what back to the original fundamentals. Let's get you working again, seeing the ball. And I think those things are actually, to me, baseball practice is a ton of fun because I
think so too. I love practice.
Yes. Honestly, I mean, like I help my son's team. Like the games are fun from an excitement standpoint and situations, but practice is fun because you get to see them hit, and you're like, okay, he could really hit the ball. He's just not yet confident, or he just, he's not seeing it right come out, off the hand and stuff. So, and you can start to see that progress really quickly. Like you could come out of a practice or two, and wow, this person went from having this flaw, and that you like, all right, I fixed that. You know what I mean? And now you can go next practice. Okay, this thing needs fixing. We fixed that, right? And I think that's one of the cool things. And I think players, from a rep standpoint, man, I mean, how many times are you going to be able to go hit the ball 25 times in a game? You're not, right? So
correct.
You can take all those swings. So I think the baseball practice, and there's all kinds of things that I think, and better than me, but coaches can do to make practice even more exciting and all kinds of things from that standpoint. I think softball does a good job of that too. Like, well, their game's a shorter, quicker game, and it allows them, but they do a lot of stuff with that too. Talk about like how not just the development part, but like the progression. Like, what can a kid who comes into your program from the time he's a freshman and expect to see as far as where they're going to be as far as a senior? Like, what does that kind of look like for a player?
So one thing that we preach, and we have a outstanding weight room guy. You're not going to play for us if you don't get in the weight room and take it seriously. That's just bar one. We tell them that from day one. You better fix your schedule to where you can get in the weight room with Coach Thomas. Coach Jake Thomas is our football coach. He's a fantastic strength and conditioning guy. That's all he does. And he works with our guys, not just on heavy lifts because they do that. He's an agility. He's a flexibility. He just like hits every aspect of what we need. So when freshmen come in, the first thing we say is, if you're not in the weight room, you need to get in the weight room. You're not going to play for us if you don't. If you don't get bigger, faster, stronger, you're not going to compete at this level. The next thing we try to talk a lot about is, what is your goal as far as your baseball career is concerned? do you want to be a really good high school player? Do you want to play at the next level? Because if I don't know what a kid's shooting for, I can't give him a realistic expectation of what he's going to see. So the guys that come in and say, yeah, I want to play, I want to play at the next level. And I don't have a bunch of dudes coming in going, I want to play D1 baseball. Like, I'm sure they do, but they don't go through that process.
Right.
My thing is always this. Okay, well, if you come to practice every day and that's all you do, you're never going to play college baseball. Like, your development is not just on me. Your development has to be a lot on you too. And I can only do so much for you. So our practices are 2.5 hours tops. You're going to get X amount of reps in our practice. If you're not hitting on the weekends, if you're not hitting in the off season, if you're not taking care of your body right, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not doing all the things that you need to do to make sure that you're maximizing your performance, on the field, if you're not mentally taking care of yourself, baseball is such a mental game because there's so much of this downtime. There's so much like failure involved in the game. And there's a lot of things that
absolutely.
Yeah. Young players just don't know how to handle a lot of that stuff because some of them just never been allowed to fail. Like, their parents just don't want them to fail. So we kind of just tell them, like, if this is what you want to do, these are the things that you're going to have to, these are the check marks that you're going to have to hit. And then finally, I make it very clear to them, and this sucks. It's part of the game when you get to this varsity level, though, is that there are things that you can't control that are going to contribute to either your failure or your success. You can't control how tall you're going to be. You can't control, for the most part, how fast you're going to be. You can build speed, but you can't. Like, some dudes are just going to show up and run a 6.6, and that's just how it is.
Right.
You can't control, a lot of the other factors that go into this stuff. You can't control injuries. A lot of this stuff is just, it's going to happen. Focus on what you can control. You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control how hard you want to work. And then everything else, you just got to let it go and just let the game have it, and just do everything you can to get yourself in a better situation. So, I have guys every year that are questioning about playing time. Well, I mean, the other guy's faster than you are. Well, how much does speed really matter? It matters a freaking lot. Like, it's a difference between stealing a bag and not stealing a bag.
Right.
This guy pounds the ball into the gaps. He's stronger than you are. Well, coach, I work really hard in the weight room. Okay, I get it, but he's 6'4" and he's 220. Like, I can't help that he's bigger and stronger just naturally than you are. And so I think making sure that athletes understand that just working hard, sometimes this ain't going to be enough. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. So does that mean you shouldn't work hard? Absolutely not. You should really bust your butt, do everything you possibly can to put yourself in a better situation. But you also have to be very realistic about where you're going to be able to go with, what the God-given talent that you are given, where you're going to be able to go with that, and then understand that, sometimes I'm just going to have to outwork everybody else. And if I outwork everybody else, maybe I'm going to have a better shot. But at the end of the day, even if you don't get that shot, at least you outworked everybody else. You did everything you possibly could to put yourself in a better situation. I think once players accept that, man, it makes the game, they loosen up and they play the game a whole lot, a lower heart rate, breathing, just enjoying themselves instead of putting so much pressure on themselves to do something that honestly most of them just aren't going to have the ability to do in the first place.
That's a great point. And it builds into, like, what is recruiting like at baseball now, right? So
it's so freaking it's across the board. I know with every sport.
Yeah.
It's just changed so much. Baseball has turned into if you're not, I'll say this, okay, so we graduated a class 2 years ago that we had two dudes. I mean, freaking dudes that I'm just like, one of the better catchers I've ever coached in my career, and probably the best infielder I've ever coached in my career, infielder, left-handed hitter. And no doubt in my mind, 10 years ago, both of these guys would have had a legit shot to play Division I baseball, like could play somewhere, maybe not a P4, but a pretty good school. And one of them, I think, probably would have been a P4 guy. And as it turned out, one of them got a D2 offer, not a great offer, just an offer to go play and a little bit of money. And when he got there, there were 10 Division I transfers in front of him. And it just kind of killed his spirit. And I said, dude, that's just how it is now. Like, you just got to put in your time. Yeah. And I'm not saying freshmen are going to go in and always make an impact. But I told him, I was like, you just got to put in your time. The other guy ended up, getting a chance to play at UNCW. He's doing great there. But, like, that class was loaded with talent. And I had 2 dudes that ended up, making it in the college baseball realm. Whereas, this year I've had a couple of guys get picked up by a JUCO. Another D3's reached out about a guy. But that's really what it's turned into is JUCO, D3, and then you just kind of work your way up. And it's kind of like a microcosm of minors and majors. You have to start from the bottom and work your way through the transfer.
Triple A, single A, double A, the whole works. Yeah,
it's brutal, but I think at the same time, it's indicative of how much freaking talent is out there, man. How much better the game has gotten. How good these when you watch the College World Series, like those guys are pro ready by the time they get out of those D1 programs, and so they're spending less time in the minors. That's how good they are.
I couldn't believe the size of the LSU guys, the LSU batters.
Unreal,
I mean, they would walk out like 6'3", 230, 6'3", 230, 6'2", 240, like 6'4", 240. I mean, it was I was like flabbergasted. Just the size of the guys now, right? I mean, they're all like tight ends or what you would see in football, like tight ends or linebackers. You know what I mean? Like that you would see at the Division I level size wise with that height and size or quarterbacks. It's unbelievable. And I think you're right. I mean, it's going on obviously in football too. The transfer portal is dominates the marketplace, especially I think when you have less players on the field, so they can make a higher impact very quickly, right? So you pick up a few guys in key positions, that pushes some kids that might have got recruited from your high school out, right? Because they're just taking this guy from here and putting him over there. Yep. And you have to, you're right. A lot of these guys are going to have to be willing to kind of bear the brunt of it and just work at this school. Then if they get good enough, make the jump, you know what I mean? And some of them will be able to do it. Some of them won't, but it's really, really interesting because it has to be difficult because in baseball, I would say it's one of the sports where so many parents in between bats and travel ball, the investment level is so high that I think parents make the mistake of thinking that there's actually going to be a return. I could tell them that honestly, by the time they're 11, you already lost your return on what baseball is going to be for 99.9% of the people, right? So let them go enjoy it, do the best they can, have a great high school season, and if they get an opportunity and they want to play, because baseball, one thing that's great about baseball is, you could go and play, right? Like it's not like your arm and physically, but someone's not hitting you like hockey or football or something like there's lower levels of injury quotient. You get injured, but it's different types of injuries.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that part is still there. Like go enjoy it and go play somewhere.
Yeah. We tell guys all the time, like, play as long as you can. Like, because once you stop playing, like once your injuries have gotten to the point where you can't step on the field anymore, once you're not competitive enough, then, you end up an old fat white guy like me coaching baseball. Like, that's what you do.
That's where we all get to that point, Coach. No matter what sport, goes right across it.
Somebody's going to tell you one day that you're just not good enough anymore. And so, like, I'll give you for instance, I've got a guy that played for me in my first and second years. He graduated. We had like a shortened season that second year when we were coming back off of COVID. They jammed all of our sports into the spring, and baseball had like a 14-game season, and we kind of played into the summer. And I had a 10-person senior class, huge senior class that year. These cats had already graduated high school and were still playing baseball for me into the summer. And so one of the guys out of that class got a chance to go to a Division III and pitch. And honestly, I thought, he's a good pitcher, a good high school pitcher. I don't know if he's going to really make it there or whatever. He ends up being the conference pitcher of the year this past year in their conference that his school plays in. He's 90 plus on the mound now. He has an extra year. He could go play somewhere if he wanted to, probably throw his name in the portal. I'm sure somebody will pick him up. And like our conversation that we had on my front porch after his senior year was, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep playing baseball or do you want to hang him up? Well, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do that. I said, do you want to keep playing baseball or do you want to hang him up? Because if you want to keep playing, we can find you somewhere to play, bro. There are so many JUCOs out there that are okay programs that need guys that are going to have half their dudes that come in not be eligible in the spring because of grades. Yeah. Like there's so many different factors that go into this. So if you want to keep playing. Find somewhere to play. I don't care what people say. You're going to spend that much money to play baseball? Screw them, dude. It's on you. Do you want to keep playing?
Right.
If you want to, then you can find somewhere to play. And you never know what's going to happen because that guy, in my mind, and I love him to death, but in my mind, I'm like, he may make it a year on their developmental team. And he ends up being 91, 92 kind of guy, and he's their freaking Saturday starter at this school that's a really good Division III baseball program in Fayetteville. You just never know. And so he just kept at it, kept doing what he loved, and it turned out really well for him.
Well, there's no doubt about it. The way you could build your body, I think that's one of the things in baseball that you really can do. If you have a decent amount of size to you, you can really build your body, your strength. You can improve your explosion and your speed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're going to be a bullet, but you can improve those areas. And I think those levels of improvement in baseball translate pretty quickly. And it's if you're willing to put in the work, and you could go from this level to that level. And that might be the difference between being a guy that isn't really sure if you can participate to being the ace on that team. It doesn't mean you're going to go to this level, but it means you're going to have a good career now, and you may improve, and you may go to the next level, and you be maybe one of the rotational guys, which could be great, Yeah. So I think baseball, you could do that. I think it's so technical, like the different skill sets are so technical that as you start to get a level of mastery on each one of those skill sets, your game level goes up, right? Where like in football, if you can't move at this speed at this position, you're probably you're either gonna have to move positions or you're just not gonna be able to play,
Right.
So
in baseball, you need so many arms too. There's such a need for pitchers because we know, that guys can't just throw infinitely anymore. So there's such a need for arms that it forces all these programs. Like if you're going to run a JUCO program and you don't have 12 to 14 arms that you can run out there consistently, man, that's 12 to 14 guys on one JUCO program that are going to have to be consistently decent on the mound. And there's how many JUCO? I mean, I can pop off 14 JUCO programs off the top of my head just in North Carolina, just in our area, that are fielding teams right now because they understand that if a guy wants to come and play baseball, that's an enrollment at our college. That's money that the state's going to give us to help run. That's tuition that he's going to be paying. That's classes that we can offer. That's, and there's so many pluses to having these programs now that, guys just have all these opportunities. And like you said, a guy can be mediocre in high school, hit another level in college, hit a growth spurt at 19. You have no idea what his body's going to do. He could run into a guy that kind of something clicks for him. He could find a coach that he really clicks with, find a pitch, find a grip that works, and all of a sudden, he's got a freaking slider that's moving 18 inches, and he didn't have that in high school. And now he can be a dude for somebody. So there's just no telling. Like the guy I was talking about, he was like 82, 83 in high school, and now he's 90 plus. And it's just because he made something happen, and he made a decision to work really hard in the weight room, and he transformed his body. Just how it is.
There's no doubt about it. I do a podcast with another guy because I played football at UConn, and but in the spring we do a Husky hardball, so we like cover the team, and we do like a handful, 5 to 10 episodes in the spring, and just covering the team. But it's amazing how many pitchers they have on the roster. When you look at the roster, like there's more pitchers than there are fielders. Like it's incredible how many pitchers they carry, and by the way, they utilize all of them at different time points. I mean, some obviously pitch more than others, but there are guys that they're utilizing them at different points in the game. I mean, they're rolling out their several guys every single game, and you're right. It's because of the arms and how they wear out, and not every arm is obviously as durable as the next one, but there are some that are usable. Like we need this guy to go out there and be a mid reliever and give me one great inning. We might need him for one out. You know what I mean, to get this position guy, this lefty or righty out. And but I was amazed by it. As soon as we started doing podcasts, the first thing when we were breaking down, like the guys who were there hitters, like it was consistently the same handful of guys that were the main guys, maybe 3 or 4 guys, but pitching wise, it was like these are 2 or 3 guys that are kind of start, but it's this guy this game, it's this guy this game, and it's amazing how to utilize all of them, and and they all have value, and they have to carry a lot of them on the roster, But you're right. Like that's another person enrolled in the school. That's another person that's getting funded for the school, so on and so forth. It's really, really amazing. Coach, before we let you go, talk about what you see on the horizon and what you guys are doing, and what are some of your projections for the future of the sport. Is the Savannah Bananas going to be everywhere?
Oh man, I was just talking about this with a buddy the other day. So, no hate on the Savannah Bananas, but it's not baseball. I can't watch it. My son wants to. It's on ESPN Plus, and my son wants to watch it. And I'm just like,
it's wrestling,
okay.
Man. It's WWE. That's what
it's sports entertainment. Yep. It's sports entertainment. So, and look, if he wants to watch it, that's fine. My son, I've got an 8-year-old kid that plays baseball, and he plays all sports. He's a baseball, football, basketball, whatever's in season. That's what he wants to play. But if the Savannah Bananas are on, he thinks it's the coolest thing ever. And I'm just like, man, I get it. And and they're expanding their league, and it's great. And they're selling out football stadiums. So did the circus, dude. Circus sold a lot of tickets too. Like that's fine if you're doing that, but I don't want people to think that that's what baseball is turning into, because it shouldn't. I think the future of the sport is, number one, you have to realize how athletic baseball players actually are. It used to be, the big fat white guy that can swing the bat really hard. Well, he was going to be the stud on the team. That's just not the case anymore. The players are so versatile. The pitching is so good. The hitters have had to get so much better. And so if you really enjoy watching the game, honing in and focusing on, what pitch is being thrown, the sequences that are being thrown, the little intricacies in the game, I think is what people need to start, paying more attention to. And that's just, me as a ball coach. I love doing stuff like that. As far as like on the horizon for us in high school sports, we're getting into the more technical aspect. It's trickling down from college. So in 5 years, we'll have a Rapsodo or a TrackMan. We'll be looking at spin rates on our campus. We will be helping guys manipulate certain things. Like we'll be providing some of the same types of feedback that they've been getting in college for the last 5 to 10 years. As that stuff becomes more affordable, as it becomes more portable, as it becomes more available to us. Also, I like to tell people all the time, like I get asked about doing lessons and stuff like that. I like to tell people all the time, I don't think high school coaches are meant to be like technical geniuses. I really don't. And it's not a knock on high school coaches. I know a lot of high school coaches that are really, really great technical guys. The movements, I got a cousin that does an O-line academy in Charlotte, OL Finish, and he's a really technical dude that just knows a lot about the position. He played at Coastal Carolina. He's a dude. But I think high school coaches are life coaches. I think we're put there to be mental coaches. I think we're put there to help guys understand that this is how the sport translates into life, because most of my guys will never step on the field after they play for me. And so I want them to understand, like, yes, we can teach you baseball, but I can really teach you how to handle tough things in life, because, when you leave here, you go to college, you get a career, whatever you decide to do, like that's when it really starts. That's when you really have to start implementing a lot of the things that you've picked up. And I want you to be a great person. I want you to be a great dad. I want you to be a great husband. I want you to be a great, citizen. I want you to be a productive part of this. And so I don't want high school coaches to get so caught up in the game that they forget about what we're really out there for. We're really out there to mold young people and to help to kind of produce a better society than what we're in now, so we can leave it better than we found it. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but honestly, that has to be my focus every single year, because I can get caught up in the technical crap too. I can get caught up in the failure and losing that last game of the year. Like, that sucks. I don't ever want to lose. But at the end of the day, like, what is my job? My job is to make sure that we pump out great people and that they're a part of their community and that they're bettering the people around them first and foremost. So hopefully that's where everybody else is headed to.
That's fantastic. And you're 100% right. Unless you win the championship that year, everybody in that playoff is losing that last game, and that's
right.
that's brutal. That's brutal for everyone. So it's important to take those lessons. And I think one of the things that's great about baseball is it's such a high failure rate. Like you really have to learn how to handle failure, because when you're up there at bat or you're pitching, or I mean, ball. Okay, how do I come back from throwing a ball? Okay, get myself gathered, like go back to what I'm supposed to. Batting. I strike out. Am I going to go strike out again, or am I going to be able to gather myself and be able to fight? I mean, some of my favorite sequences are when a guy's in a tough situation and it's like 3-2, and he fouls it off. He fouls it off again. He fouls it off again. Like you could see him mentally fighting. And the pitcher's obviously mentally fighting as well, right? And I always think that's one of the coolest battles when you see like, all right, who's going to figure it out. We
love to talk about that in our program, man. So we've tracked. I don't care about batting average or crap like that. We track quality at bats, and so we have the things that qualify quality at bat. And you can look it up; it's an actual stat. But whenever we have a dude that's got in a 2-strike count, and I told you that's one of our absolutes is that we're going to be a really good 2-strike hitting team. I tell guys all the time, like, this is not what is your swing better? I don't care about the aspects of your swing anymore. This is a freaking fight, bro. Like who's gonna win the fight? Are you going to do anything you can to do what you have to do to win this fight? Or are you going to allow the pitcher to overpower you? And it's really, you got to imagine yourself in a boxing ring. Like how long can I keep standing and taking these hits, to let the other guy punch himself out and make a mistake to where I can now, step in and make him pay for that mistake. If you can do that, like you said, man, those 9, 10, 11 pitch at bats, it fires me up in the third base coaching box. Like I would rather see that than see a guy, hit 3 pumps a game, just because I know that dude that's in those 2-strike counts, man, everything's on the line for his team, and he's doing everything he can to fight. So I love stuff like that.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite, because I'm like, who's going to win this mental battle? Like, they're both mentally fighting, right? Because otherwise you're walking this guy, right? And you know he's got to throw strikes, and you as a batter know he's got to come in there on you, and are you going to be able to fight it off? And when they get a hit, it's like you're like unbelievable. Like even listen, when you put it back in play after that, you're like, hey, that's exactly right, quality at bat, and that eventually that guy is gonna, a guy that's willing to fight like that, he's gonna get it figured out.
That's right, 100%.
So, but Coach, it was great having you on. I really enjoyed talking with you. An hour flew by here.
It did, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me, and thank you for what you're doing. Giving guys a voice, letting coaches get on here and talk about what they do and how they do it, and I think it's really important for people outside the profession to be able to see, like, get that insight into the profession. So, thank you guys so much for having me and allowing me to be a part of it.
No doubt.
Coach, appreciate you taking the time, man. You're doing great things. Continue doing the great work, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day, Coach.
Thanks, you guys too.
All right.
Take care, Coach.
That was great. That was a ton of fun.
Man, that's awesome.
That's good stuff. It's always interesting when you talk to a different sport and you see the different aspects that go into it, and the environment that's particular to their sport and the things that make it successful. It is interesting, like, in the non-revenue generating sports like football and basketball. I mean, football and basketball are revenue generating. In the non-revenue generating sports, for the most part, which baseball falls into in most places, maybe not in the SEC, but other places. It's interesting how the opportunities are hard. I mean, I could only imagine when you get, and baseball's still a very popular sport. So I can only imagine when you get to some of these other sports, like it must be very, very scarce, the opportunities. Like I would guess that.
You mean like to be a head coach?
No. To play at the next level. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, I mean, look, I just think that
because there's not as many people on the field, you know what I'm saying, at a time. Although,
baseball, your rosters, whatever. I
think 30,
20 something or above that. Definitely. I mean, I just think that it just in general, I just think people have an assumption that a lot more people play at the next level, regardless of sport, than anything else, right? Like a lot of people I think are like, oh, you played high school, like why didn't you play? Like
Right.
I don't know. I just think like with social media, because that's what's pumped and seen so much that everybody is, or that everybody assumes if you play a high school sport, you want to go play in that next level, which I don't think that's true at all. I think it's very, obviously certain schools, certain areas, certain sports, like that stuff's more conducive to playing at the next level. But a majority of regardless of sport, you do not play after high school, right? Which is why high school sports are so pivotal and so important in so many, just how you become as a person, is because you don't get to do that after high school for the most part, unless you're one of that small percentage that plays at the next level. I love that he said that like coaching high school is different, and that it's like you're a life coach, right? Like right. I'm sure that guy knows more baseball than majority of he could be an quote an XO guy and all that kind of stuff, but you're a life coach. Like he said, majority of his guys don't play at the next level or will never pick up a bat again in their lives. So to be more of a life coach and really, help those guys mature and grow into young men and good dads and husbands and citizens and all that stuff. I know it sounds cliche, but I think that stuff is just so, it's not the focus for the most part, right? Because guys want to know, how many players did you put at the next level? How many games did you win? Well, how many real successful dudes have come out of our program that are now successful people in society, successful citizens, like good dads, good husbands, like how do we track that over, who's playing in whatever level of ball? I think that's just something it's so overlooked, and for what high school coaches really do for kids and all that kind of stuff, I think it should just be praised more.
Well, it's never going to be praised, but it definitely is something that the coaches do. It's always, you're always going to have you might get praised 20 years down the line, but while you're in it, you're not going to feel like you're getting praised, and that's
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Majority of it.
Why what I mean? You're going to feel like you're getting praised. What do you mean? I mean, you win a game, you get praised, but as far as
because if you're doing it for the right reasons and you see those kids developing, changing, maturing, you know what I'm saying? I don't care about all that outside noise or any of that other stuff. Maybe praise is the wrong word. It doesn't have to be a monetary or a please or thank you.
Appreciation, you mean more?
I guess, yeah, maybe, yeah. I don't know. To me, it's just
praise to me is oh, Derek, you're such a great coach.
No,
appreciation would be like, man, I really, that was awesome how much you helped me this season. I learned a lot. I think you get more appreciation than you do praise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that I guess that makes more sense.
Praise you definitely get when you win a game. You definitely get praise when you win a game. But appreciation, you get whether you won a game or not, from a player that you work with or group of players that you work with, or and
I just think, and I also just think it's gauged different, right? I think every guy does it or is in it, you know what I mean? And there's some level of you know what I mean? What one guy, is satisfied with how he did, another guy looks at something a different each way. So it's very individualized in terms of how coaches kind of gauge that and judge, whether or not it's worth it. Right. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Coach just talked about it, the things that he, the list of things that he brought up about, the things that he didn't know, or wasn't really the level that had to go into it, I think is always one of the greatest conversations or questions when you ask a head coach, what are those things that nobody knows that you know what I mean? Because it's those things that nobody really does know, because again, they're gone and you're still working. Or the little minuscule tasks of hey, I got to do this, where you wouldn't even think that was part of, being a coach or being a head coach, or those types of things. I just think it's so cool. That stuff's so interesting. because I don't think many parents have a clue about what actually, you're doing for their child on a regular basis, when you're not, quote, on the clock. But if you're a coach, like, it's maybe some sports less than others, but it's a 24-hour a day, 365 type thing. If you're doing it right and those types of things, if you actually care, like, you're always putting in time, and that stuff can't be calculated.
No, there's no doubt. I coach more now that I coach youth kids than I did when I coached in high school. It's every day, every sport, 90 different sports. It's fun though. It's fun. You get to see them develop and grow, and aha moments are pretty cool. So
when it clicks, that's always a cool thing. When you finally see that thing click, and they're like, you get that aha moment, like, oh. Or like when they finally do, like, and they do something that you've told them over and over and over, and they're finally successful at it, right? And then it's, oh, like, that works. It's like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you that does work. You just got to do it.
No doubt. Very cool. All right, man. Great pod. We'll be back tomorrow with James Vint, I think.
Yep. Coach Vint's coming on.
That'll be great. I look forward to that. And
I called him the pistol guru, and he just laughed. He said, I sure as hell ain't a guru, but
he's a pistol gun guy.
Yeah,
that's how I know the name.
Oh yeah, he's written books, a bunch of books on I think we can ask him. I think he's at 6 books. Yeah,
I feel like I have his books.
I would assume, and he's been a offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, especially he's done a lot.
Interesting. That'll be cool. That'll be a ton of fun. Look forward to that, and then
good stuff.
And then flag tonight. Yeah, nice day today though. Great day. What a day today is. Beautiful outside. Everything
will be a great day since after those first two in the rain and the cold.
Yep. Now we got summer coming up, so it'll be good. All right.
Rock and roll.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.